I know.
A jolly candy-like button.
Yes.
You have to. You need that big red button to not press. That's my favorite. Hey guys, welcome to another week with Spilling Ink. We have some interesting information for you. We have changed sponsors. Creative Edge, who we still love dearly, will definitely have their people represented coming on our show throughout the year. But we are happy to announce that one of our new sponsors is a family friend, so to speak. It is the wonderful people at Go Indie Now. So Go Indie Now being our new sponsor, they get the first top slot tonight. We also have another secret sponsor we'll tell you about at the end of the show. But Go Indie Now has a wonderful new show that they want you to know about. On June 8th, their show 21 Grams is going to be premiering. This is it's a live interactive interview show where the guests get to choose the interview topics, but the audience gets to fill in the questions. So that should be really interesting. That one's going to be showing live on June 8th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Go Indie Now's Facebook page. Check the show notes below at the end of the show, and we'll make sure you have all the links to them. And thank you again to Go Indie Now for helping to make our show possible. They allow us to be able to stream on both YouTube and Facebook at the same time. So we love you, Joe. All right, back to the topic at hand. Our new guest for the week. Tonya, have you been on our show before?
No.
No, great. So this is your first time. Well, Tonya, welcome to the show. Tonya is actually a local Vegas author like me. Yay, Go Indie.
Vegas.
So tell us a little bit about you and what you do, Tonya.
Well, I am an author and an actress. I do both film and theatrical work. I was actually scheduled to play Cleopatra as my debut as Cleopatra on March 15th, and then they shut everything down, so we never got to actually do that performance. Problem with that is when you have a character, you embody a character, you can't really release that character until you play her, and so I've been dealing with this as an emotional queen.
I'm like, so you've been Cleopatra for 3 months. That's awesome.
Yes, but it also means I haven't had to leave my house since March 16th.
Yeah.
And I have all of my things brought to me, and
I do.
My groceries are delivered, and I'm great.
I like
that is kind of awesome.
Did you find the alcohol delivery service too? Yes.
Oh, are we taking milk and honey baths? Oh, yes. You got to fully go into that. Yes. Spoil yourself. And of course, the boss is watching Go Indie Now. Hey, Joe. So I'm going to call him from now on. He's the boss, both him and Becca.
Yeah. No, I will say my mother has sent care packages. I am fully stocked, and I'm grateful for all of her help. And I'm very blessed. And I know that there are people who are struggling through all of this. There are children who counted on those meals at school that they couldn't get because they weren't going to school. So, all laughing aside, I know that I'm very, very lucky in this particular pandemic situation.
I think
it's hit everybody a little bit differently, and we've all had major adjustments, and now we're kind of going the opposite way as things are opening back up slowly. We're adjusting to, should I go out instead of I can't go out? So it's kind of a twist now.
And I will say that I've grown quite accustomed to not having to leave my house, so it's going to have to be something very important to make me leave.
Yeah,
now,
wearing a mask for groceries. I know. Like three times in 3 months. So
it is amazing to have groceries delivered, though.
It is. It's really nice.
Yeah, my favorite is the pickup. I order them and then I just go grab them and they just bring right to the car. No fuss, no muss. It's all good.
That's what my roommate was doing. He orders it ahead of time. He just goes, he picks it up, and he doesn't have to get out at all.
Mm-hmm.
No interaction with anyone but the one person, and it's super quick.
Yeah, here at the campground, I did the to-go service, but the campground managers went and picked it up and delivered it to my door. I'm like, we can get really used to this, guys.
The only issue with it is the lack of control with the produce.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, there is that. or when they do substitutions and you just really don't like the substitution, but whatever it was, they're like, fine, I'll try that brand. It's fine. Just give it to me.
Right. Yeah. But again, if these are our problems, then we're very, very lucky in this situation.
Oh, right. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of the problems, though, that it's caused, Tonya, we were talking before the show started about the Henderson Writers Conference, and you were a big part of that. And it kind of got sidetracked due to all of this. Can you tell us about how that worked its way out and how you guys managed to pull it off?
So after several months of plotting and planning and arranging and finagling people and, making arrangements with the casino and the showroom and stuff, the world shut down and we couldn't meet in a huge gathering that's going to have over 100 people from all over the world. We have an international conference where we usually end up with people from other countries. It's not just small Southern Nevada area. Not that our area is really that small to begin with, but we had 2 weeks to turn it into an online conference. And with the help of Wolf O'Rourke, he really handled the tech side of it. The two of us worked together. He did the tech, I handled the faculty, and we had a wonderful team of volunteers who helped us have 3 tracks. We had 2 people watching each class to make sure that there weren't any tech issues or to fix the tech issues if there were any. And the attendees were wonderful. The faculty was even more amazing. The fact that they had to work from home under their own situations. Some of them had people there. It was just a lot of luck, and we were very blessed that it worked out the way it did.
That's good. Now, knowing that you can pull it off as an online thing, will you guys do another one next year online, or will you attempt to do another in person?
We are going to attempt to do another in person, but we are going to keep in mind that we need to be prepared to do an online conference. Now we know that we can do it. It'll be a lot more streamlined because it won't be scramble. We have 2 weeks. Hurry up. Let's get this done. And there won't be, I hope this is good enough. It'll be, we know exactly what we need to do.
Would there be an option for hybrid?
It's something that people are talking about. It would be complicated to do that. It's not out of the question, though. It's a little early to know for sure.
Okay.
What does it say about you guys that you were able to pull something like that off in 2 weeks? I mean, that's a lot of work. It's an amazing.
It says that willpower is an amazing force.
Yes, it is.
I mean, that seriously, I mean, we've seen and we've participated in online conferences before, and it's a lot of work to have months to prepare, but to do something like that in 2 weeks and to still be able to provide enough content for the people who are attending the classes, to make sure that the teachers and instructors are able to still get the material out there. I can't even fathom it. That is so much work.
I mean, if you put it on paper, I would have probably said it can't be done, but that was not an option. It had to be done. And if you take can't off the plate, it gets done.
That's amazing. Well, I hope that next year you guys will be able to do another in-person, but I do think the hybrid option is quite interesting.
You miss out on the networking if you do it online. You don't, there was an option to network virtually, there was a lounge, but it's not the same as sitting and having dinner together and just talking about your lives, not specifically about your work or your writing, just talking about life. But you miss that interaction.
Right. But it does open it up to the people who maybe can't get there.
Right. Yeah.
That's the plus. It opens up the door to more people than, just those that can get to Vegas. And
definitely. There were people who dropped out of the conference because we weren't doing it in person, but we more than made up for that with people who maybe couldn't make the trip, but now they can participate because we did it online.
Right.
And in fact, we even had we had a faculty member who was in England. That wouldn't have happened if we were doing it in person, you know?
Exactly. So
the time difference with the English.
Yeah, we gave her all early classes.
Oh my goodness.
And she was wonderful. Her name is Rose Drew, and she has a publishing house there. She's wonderful.
Now,
awesome.
Speaking of having publishers and editors, a lot of times at these conventions, there's pitch meetings. Were you able to still hold those kind of things for the attendees?
We scheduled the pitch sessions ahead of time. Usually when we do it in person, you can schedule one ahead of time and then you can schedule more at the event. This time, everything had to be scheduled ahead of time because we had to make sure everyone had the correct links and could connect with each other and not interfere with their classes. And it's not like we have a person on site who can just go down the list and organize it.
Right.
So we changed that a little bit by making it an online thing that you do ahead of time. And with the exception of one of the faculty members, it worked out great. One was just having trouble with the tech side, and then she made special arrangements to help people after the conference. It just wasn't during the conference, but she opened her email and her services for the next week afterwards. So it worked out.
That's good.
We've got a couple comments here in the comment section.
Yeah,
about
I'm looking over there now.
I'm always fascinated with when you go to these conventions, like you said, it's the networking, but it's also the ability to get your work critiqued. It's the ability to take the classes and learn some things that you maybe didn't learn. And that goes for new authors as well as seasoned authors. Right. You have been in the business for a while. You still have so much that you can learn.
Right.
And being able to attend these events is just such a wonderful experience. And you walk away with the camaraderie, but you also walk away with knowledge and that boost of inspiration that makes you want to jump back in and write.
Yeah. Right. And getting to hear other people's stories, that always sparks an idea. You might hear one word and it's like, ooh, that gives me an idea.
And that's one of the things I've been missing because everything has been canceled. My entire summer schedule was canceled. I know you guys are all feeling the same thing. Everybody's schedules have been canceled. And I think it's hit me in the inspiration section. I know I want to write. I know I have a story that's somewhat outlined, but then I sit down and I just don't have that drive like I'm supposed to have. And I feel it. I feel drained. It's that I just can't.
I think it's been that way since March for me, but I'm starting to crawl out of it a little bit, writing a little bit. I mean, even if it's a sentence or two, a week, it's not a day at this point. But
right. Sometimes it's just about showing up to do the work, even if you don't get much done. Eventually, your body will know it's time. It's time to write now. If you just show up and do the work, eventually it'll come. You tell the muse, this is our appointment, and your muse will show.
And that's true. The whole nothing motivates like a deadline. Absolutely.
Yes.
You have to do something. You do it. And I know the Three Furies ladies, they run weekly sprints. Sometimes they just run impromptu sprints. And if I'm on when they're running one, I try to jump in because that helps. Just knowing that, hey, we're all writing in 20 minutes. And at the end of that 20 minutes, we're going to post our word count. Just that little bit of
that competitive nature.
I was going to say the competitive.
You got something done.
It's like, I'm going to be the one with the most.
There was a day where I had no inspiration whatsoever, and I even told them, I said, "Yeah, I guess I'll join in, but I don't know what I'm going to write. I may write the word hi 5,000 times." And while I did, because the active typing sometimes helps. While I did write gibberish for a little bit, I did manage to pull a couple of good sentences out, which did spark an idea. So it did help.
Yeah.
I went to a ladies' writing retreat earlier this year, and I always have a lot of things going on. So I had a plan for what I was going to write, and when I got there, the internet would not work. I could not pull up my saved files in Google Drive, and so I had been putting off the speech that I was going to write that I was going to give before I did a diversity panel, a panel on diversity and inclusive writing. And I realized, you know what? I have a blank page. I have time. I'm going to write that speech. And so I just wrote my rough draft without accessing my story, without having my blog to distract me. I just focused on that and I was able to get it done. So it might seem like it was a problem, but it forced me that deadline and that time forced me to get something done that needed to happen anway.
Well, that's good.
It does. That's it's a good thing to push yourself sometimes, even when you don't want to. Well, and speaking of that, again, before we went on live, we were talking to you, Tonya, about different types of writing. And you had mentioned something about adapting one of your stories into screenplay. And that's something we've touched on, but we've never actually delved into. So can you kind of give us a little bit of background on that and tell us how you go about getting into that space of adapting something that you've already written?
Well, this was another one of those deadline situations where I was given an opportunity to submit a screenplay, an opportunity that I would not have ordinarily had. I've never written a screenplay. It's not like I have a screenplay literary agent, but I do have an acting agent who happens to be a literary agent for screenplays. And he contacted me and said, you know that novel that you're trying to get published? I know someone who's looking for screenplays, full-length screenplays that are along those lines. So if you get it to me as a screenplay, I'll submit it for you. So I was given a deadline, and it was an impossible deadline, but
nothing motivates like a deadline.
Those are
went offline. Right. And I went offline. I stopped social media. We were already on lockdown. It's not like I had any social obligations that I had to deal with. And I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And really, when you're adapting, it's cutting.
Mm-hmm.
It was so much cutting. And so I had to dissect my manuscript and just determine what is not essential. And it was heartbreaking because I'm cutting out characters that I love. The mother for my main character was not essential for this book.
Oh.
So it was real. It really truly hurt me to remove characters and get it into screenplay length, because they don't want to look at something that's 150 pages. Oh, you're a debut writer and we're going to do a 3-hour movie for you? No, that's not going to happen.
Right.
And so I had to surgically remove characters and cut scenes. And then sometimes I had to just change scenes. It's like, okay, so this setting wouldn't work. Right. This is, when you write a novel, it can take place wherever you want. But when you're writing a screenplay, you have to keep in mind, they need to be able to create this environment, and it shouldn't be ridiculously expensive. If you're not writing a sci-fi, there's no reason to have some extravagant set.
Right.
So I tried to reuse places or use different parts of the same place. And okay, so this character is gone, but this element is still needed. So I will give this section to this character to say, and this section to this character to say, so that you still get the dynamic and the ideas that are, you still get what's important in the scene, but you don't necessarily get the chaos of so many characters that how are we going to hire 15 characters for this one thing,
But that's an awesome way to pare down, and it gives you an idea. Yeah, it's probably good for blurbs too, because you've got to get down to the essential pieces of the story. What's the important parts? And you're right. The script writing on that it's got to be heartbreaking.
It was so painful because you think you get it down and you look and it's still too long, so you have to go and you have to go at it again and take another pass. And what can I condense? What can I remove? How can I wrap up this conversation so you still get the same impact with all of this dialogue?
Right, because the dialogue is king in the script.
Right.
Now, one of our audience members, Julia, asked if you used a certain program to put it into screenplay form.
I used a program called Fade In because it's compatible with a lot of other programs that are out there, and you do have to pay for it, but it's not as expensive as some of the ones where if you're making a living writing screenplays, you would want to invest in something like that. It does everything that I need for this stage. And it converts to those other programs so that if someone is using them, you can still read it.
Yeah, and it's a very particular format.
It is. And Fade In, I believe you get the updates for free. Like I, had to do research, and I had some help with that too. It's like, I'm asking people that I know in the industry, and then people who are just really good at researching. It's nice to have a team to help me.
Absolutely.
And, I asked we have a filmmaker in town, Kelly Schwartz, and I contacted him and told him, I'm embarking on this crazy task. Can you help me? You do this for a living. And he actually told me to stop writing and gave me some research to do, read this script, read this beginning scene, read this. So there's that part of me that's like, but I'm on a deadline. I need to keep moving, you know?
Yeah.
But he gave me new insight. And so the work that I was doing was smarter, you know? So I was working really hard, great. But because he gave me new tools, it helped me to do a better job.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, when we talk to new authors, we tell them to write the book that they would want to read. Look at the books in your genre, study those as a way of developing your characters and plots. So yeah, naturally, if you're going to write a screenplay, you want to look at good screenplays and see what they're doing right in order to be able to emulate that.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. But just the cutting down portion of it, like my heart hurts. I know that the saying is, you know, your darlings, but I can just, after
it's worse than killing your darlings for a novel, because you've overwritten the novel when you're taking out pieces that felt essential to the novel, but it gave me the opportunity to take another pass at that novel and say, you know what, maybe this really wasn't necessary. And then to know definitively, you know what this is. It's too much to put on film, but it's still important for this story. So I will keep this one. Now, it's better to know for sure.
And did you pare that down and re-prepare it to go out?
I did.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, it strengthened my novel to turn it into a screenplay after it was a novel.
I like that. I like that approach. I mean, that's, you know, it's doing like triple the work. But the product is probably so much more refined and so much.
It is polished.
Now, did it help you at all when it comes to the one thing we all dread, which is writing the queries, the summaries, the synopsis, all of that, which we have to pare down even further and distill it into like a 250 to maybe 1,000-word chunk?
Maybe just the pitch line, it helped with that, because I did do a small pitch page to go along with it. Mm-hmm. But I would have to say that Henderson Writers Group and the Las Vegas Writers Conference, that has helped far more with how to write a query and how to write a synopsis, that kind of thing. But I rewrote all of that again after this last conference. I was one of the people who did work one-on-one with the agent who was having the tech issues, and after I changed my query, I started getting all these full requests. I was like, you know what?
That's good.
It mattered.
Yes, it does.
It made a difference. It's the same story, you know?
It's all in how you sell it. I mean, I've seen, you know, even, let's face it, we're home a lot. We're probably binge watching a lot of TV. Mm-hmm. Sometimes as you're going through TV and movie channels, something looks one way and you don't want to watch it because it looks stupid or the quick summary on it doesn't sound right. But a friend comes up to you and says, oh my God, this was the best show. And they sell it to you in that different way.
Yes.
You're like, oh, why didn't I watch this? Why did they write it this way when it clearly should have been that way?
There's a YouTube show called Black Girl in a Big Dress. And this has been out for 2 years. I'm wondering, how has no one loved me enough to tell me about this show? Okay. And they're just like 5 to 7 minute videos. It's what I watch when I'm eating something, because I don't have time to take a real meal break, but I like to watch something when I'm eating. And you know what? I can take 7 minutes and watch this show, and it's fantastic. It's adorable. I wish someone had told me. So now this is me telling you guys, watch this show. Get this girl a real contract. She should be doing bigger than YouTube.
And maybe she will. Hopefully, you know, eventually word gets around.
Right.
But, you know, it's all in how you sell it. And sometimes you think selling something one way or pitching something one way is the best way to do it. And you need the perspective. You need that.
You're too close to it.
You know? Yes, definitely.
And I've helped a couple other writers write their pitch letter to agents because I've read the books for them. And one of them actually landed an agent from my reread. I'm like, no, this is what's important here. And he landed an agent. So it's like,
I had someone from one of my writing groups rewrite my query.
Yeah.
She wrote it and it was like, this story sounds amazing. I would never say these things about my book. Like I would never be so presumptuous to say these things. And I used it. And again, full request from a huge house. It was just like, so fingers crossed, you know?
Yes. There, I crossed them.
Fingers, toes, eyes. Wait, no, don't cross your eyes.
Not on video.
Yeah, no, I can't do that. I tried.
Oh, look, somebody else likes that show too.
Yeah.
There you
Hi, Valerie. Valerie is one of my super fans, and you don't know what it means to have super fans at my stage, before I've actually even done anything huge.
It's awesome.
We all need the cheerleaders. We need those
Yes.
people who help us, especially when we're at our most doubtful, because let's face it, we're all our worst enemies.
Yes.
We are our
And,
biggest critics.
being an author and an actress, I invite rejection daily, and sometimes it hurts tremendously. Sometimes it's, I'm fine. I can get over it. And other times it's, I should just quit everything.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a rejection on my query. I should never be an actress again. One has nothing to do with the other, but
Like, wait a minute, no.
Yeah, they reject
you
one
get
part
the
of you,
woe
they
is
reject
me.
the whole thing. I get it.
Right.
I totally get that.
I just can't be a creative in any method, any means whatsoever. I should just quit everything. And then you get someone like Valerie who's like, I'll watch anything that you do. Okay, then I will keep making stuff.
Yes.
Well, I'll read anything that you write. Yes.
Yes.
Our other boss is on watching us too. And yes, she will definitely shake the ball prod for us, but she will also get out the cattle prod when we're not doing what we're supposed to.
The whip.
Yeah, you need that too.
It's true. We do. We need our cheerleaders. Absolutely. And there is a lot of rejection, and I can't imagine being an actress and being an author, because you're getting it from different sides. You're not only getting the creative, you're getting the physical as well, because as you go in for a part, you're physically embodying that character. And
it's actually easier to miss out on an audition. For one, only one person can get that job. So while several books can be chosen at an agency, only one person can get each role. And so when you have 10 fantastic actors, you just have to pick the one that's best for the role. It doesn't mean that the others are bad. It just means that one was the best for the role. And that can be any number of things, like where they're actually located. Are we saving money by not having to fly them here? Or how do they look in relation to the other characters? Are there family members that you have to consider? Being an actress of color, that makes it more challenging for me, because I don't look like the average person. So I can't fit into just any family without them having to rewrite something. It would have to either be a non-biological family, or it'd have to be a mixed family, and then they have to expand that into all of the other characters in the story. Or, it's funny though, because in theater, they don't care.
Right.
They don't care at all in theater. You don't have to match. It's just you have to be you have to be able to embody the character, and your physical appearance doesn't matter whatsoever.
So which do you prefer, theater or film?
They both have wonderful elements, because with theater, it's a different performance every time you do it. And you get that immediacy with the people right there in the room. You know if your work is landing.
Okay.
But with film, you can hone in and make sure that it's so polished and so right that you are giving the best version of yourself, the best version of that character, because it's not just one take. It's not, all right, well, you have one shot to get this entire thing, and if you mess up, everyone is going to see it.
No pressure.
Right. I mean, you can get a close-up on someone's facial reaction if you're doing it on film, and sometimes that you miss that if it's theater, because unless you're in the front row, you might not be able to see that level of detail.
Right.
So I really do enjoy both storytelling mediums, and I enjoy watching both too, for that very reason.
Now, has being an actress and embodying different characters helped you to create your own characters and stories? Have you used some experiences?
Definitely. And one of the things that I have done is gone out into the world as a character I'm writing. So being an actress has allowed me to just be this character. And you see how people react in real life to that character. So, okay, I'm in this person's head, but I'm also getting the experience of, how do people respond to her? when she walks in and demands this type of treatment, do people kowtow and give it to her? Or are they like, I'm going to spit in your food, you know? You look like you're thinking about that, Katie.
I am thinking about it. Again, it's all perspective, and sometimes something just triggers and yeah.
See, you hear one thing and you get an idea and you're like, I need to put that aside.
There's my squirrel moment for today. Jason's not here, so one of us has to be the squirrel.
I'm having squirrel moments too. But I'm just not.
When I went to London, I went to all these different areas because I have a lot of stories that take place in London. Not necessarily the same book, but you know, when you're there, you have to fit the research for all the different stories, even the ones you're not actively working on, into the trip. And one of the characters likes to exercise in the park, and she gets tired of doing her warm up at home that she was doing just because it's embarrassing to do it at the park. And she decides, I don't care what people think. I don't know anybody here. I'm just going to do my exercise in the park, and then I'll go on my run. Because she would go on a run after she did the warm up, but by the time she gets to the park, she's not warm anymore.
Right.
So she just starts doing it in the park. And I decided, all right, I'm just going to be brave. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do her exercise in the park. And I did it. And it was embarrassing. And a school of children walked by and started pointing and laughing at me. And it's, well, I guess that's going in the book, you know?
Yeah.
That is not an experience I would have imagined on my own. But hey, and I had to just experience that as her. She wouldn't be embarrassed. She didn't care. I was mortified, but what does she care about what they think?
Right.
I love that. Because I'd be right there with you, 100% mortified.
Yeah. It was like, nope, I've decided I'm her, and Veronica would not care. So just keep going, you know?
Yep. I just wave back. Point you wave.
You're an extrovert. You would. You wouldn't care.
Yes. Come join me.
Oh, I'd try to rock or a tree or something. Don't look at me.
But, you know, of course, I am like, you know, the awkward ostrich. I am not, I have no flow. I have no grace. So yeah, it would be just that much more mortifying.
Yes, but you just lean into the skid right there. You're like, you know what? I'm owning this.
Right.
This is how it is. Let's see how big of a laugh I can get.
Look, I'm in it now. I'm committed. I'm just going to finish this as Veronica, and then I can go and be mortified in my room later as Tonya.
Okay. You know, well, it's a good exercise in knowing what the feelings are, but if she was not mortified by that, or if she was under,
but that was tested, wasn't it? That theory was tested.
Yes, exactly.
Well, again, going back to write what you know, you write your experience. You felt the experience of it. You know your feelings, and you can separate them from what your character's supposed to feel.
And so in truth, it affected her more than she thought it would, but she still maintained, you know what? I'm not going to let it change who I am.
Yep. I love that. I need to exercise, and this is how I get there. Yeah. It's that whole I need to do something regardless of how I look doing it.
It was a test, though. It was a real test. Like, oh, you think you can just go out in the world as your character, huh? Yeah, let's see how you handle this.
But then the big question is, once you were able to do that, the next time, was it easier?
Yes, definitely. But that's true for any skill that you're exercising. You know, is it easier for me to write a screenplay now that I've done it once? Absolutely. Is it easier to write a novel or a short story or anything that we're writing? Of course it is. And then I will say, we were talking about rejection earlier. Because the writing is so much more personal, that rejection is 1,000 times more painful, because that feels like, oh, we're rejecting your heart and soul versus we're just rejecting you as this character. You don't embody this work. But when your own work is rejected, that's like you are being rejected. You know what I mean? Like, that's a pass on you.
It's yes. I guess.
That's how it feels anyway.
It's been a long time since I went the, merry-go-round of agents and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm indie.
You feel the same way though when you get a bad review. Somebody
I just kind of like, unless it's aimed personally, I'm kind of like, yeah.
Some of them are though, not personally, but you can read some reviews where the reader has taken such an affront to your book. You have physically injured them by making them read it. Not that you did. But that's the way they approach their review, and they attack instead of just writing, I didn't like the characters, I didn't like the story, didn't make sense. This author should never write another word again, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, let's just say I'm looking forward to that as a problem, okay?
I don't know.
But you have to, just like with a rejection, you have to learn to grow the thick skin, and you know what?
And you have to look at it and go, okay, do they have a point, or are they just not my target audience? Because that's a key thing,
Right, and they might have a valid point, or maybe, dude, this wasn't for you. Why are you even reading it?
Exactly.
Thank you for reading it. Thank you for caring enough to say something. But obviously, my writing isn't for you. Read something else.
Yep.
However, thank you for reading.
A friend of mine will say, anytime you get a bad review, go to your favorite book online, look up their reviews, because I guarantee you your favorite book is going to have some equally horrible review on it, because not every book is for every person. And so that helps to dull the pain when you get a bad review. If you can go to something that, you have such great appreciation for, and somebody else has been equally as mean about that book.
Well, now I'm going to do that.
That came
good idea.
Not my advice, but that came from a friend, and it does help.
Yeah,
especially when you get a bad review.
Have you guys ever gotten scathing emails from readers?
Oh no.
Not from readers, but I've had literary agents tell me that my voice is not authentically Black enough. My writer voice.
I'm like,
okay.
Not all Black people sound the same.
Right.
And it's always a white person telling me this.
I'm like, what? Yeah, exactly.
How does that work? Please tell me how I could be Blacker.
How am I supposed to sound?
I mean,
so I just say, please, I'm Blacker than thou.
I love that. But yeah, no, that's a ridiculous thing, because you're right.
It is ridiculous.
Everybody's different. Everybody's different.
How can a straight person tell a gay writer your voice doesn't sound gay enough? I mean, your character passes for straight. Excuse me? We're not all the same,
Right, exactly.
So while that was very painful to hear, I'm at the point where I understand now that's just not the right agent for me. That's right. Thank you for letting me know that we are not a good fit. And I won't query you with my next book,
Right. Yeah. No, I've gotten the email. And I actually wrote back and I said, I'm sorry you felt that way, because it was one of my earlier books, which is, it was survival games, which is really harsh in some ways, and it triggered things in her. And I said, I'm sorry for that, and thank you for being brave enough to reach out to me. And it actually turned it around. She responded. Wow. She didn't expect me to respond in such a nice way, to say, I'm sorry you felt that way. I'm sorry this did this to you. I know it's a harsh subject.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one of my other books would be more up your alley. It doesn't have any triggering things in it. Well, most of them do. but
you can't always tell what's going to trigger someone else.
Exactly.
I mean, you can only write what matters to you. And there will be things that other people can't handle or just don't ever want to read about, and that's fine.
Right. And it was very brave of her to sit down and write something. And it told me that I have affected emotions in her from my writing.
Right.
Which was a good thing.
You're doing
Even though you made her angry.
You made her feel.
Yeah. I accepted her anger and said, you have every right to feel that way. I'm sorry it did that to you, but So saying somebody's brave to reach out and do that, it's one thing, but yeah,
I can't believe you responded. That's
it wasn't
you're going to open up when you respond to somebody who sent you a nasty gram of any sort.
Well,
I'm sorry, but I have to bring up, did you see Rebekah Jonesy's note to write with darker ink to make it blacker? I just saw that.
Oh, that's good.
That is hilarious.
Yep. Like, that'd be a good response too.
Yeah. Send it back in bold. You know?
I guess I have no preconceived notions. You know, I'm like, that comment blows my mind because you're a person.
Well, the first time it was wow, but it was like it happened 2 or 3 times, and it was just okay. So this is a thing. This is a thing that is going to prevent me from getting published. Is that I don't sound the way people expect Black people to sound, but I'm not going to change who I am to fit their stereotype. You know what I mean? Then I'm being inauthentic. Yeah. And then how could that possibly translate to anything worthwhile on the page?
Right.
And that's one narrative opinion too. I mean, you can ask 100 different people what they would expect someone to sound like, and you'll get 100 different answers.
Right. But the problem is they were saying that it won't sell if it doesn't match people's expectations. But I'm still not willing to change my writing voice to be fake Black. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm going to be the real kind of Black that I am.
But even then, you're also not meeting everyone's expectations. You're meeting one particular person's expectations. Which doesn't make sense either. The story is what's important. The characters and how they go through their journey. That's what's important.
Right. You know? And guess what? We all love, we all hate, we all get hurt. It doesn't matter what you look like. We all experience human emotion.
Right. Exactly.
We all suffer from the same wants and needs and pains and desires as any other person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. It's just, I'm still blown away by that. It's like, okay, now I want to read your book. Because I'm like, what does somebody have a preconceived notion of? I'm sorry.
My main character is very anachronistic. You know, she has a cat named Bennett. She loves Jane Austen. And so she thinks in big words, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
And apparently Black people don't do that.
From where?
I don't know. This is news to me.
I'm still trying to connect those dots, and that's probably part of the problem out there today.
That is
because it's like you act human, okay?
Right.
There you go. Exactly.
Like, my mother is white, but my grammar is better than hers. So what are you trying to say here? You know?
Yeah.
It breaks down to it's the character. Your character, you must stay true to that character. And when you build that character, you build them with their traits, their beliefs, their strengths, their weaknesses. That's what builds the arc of their stories, how you fight against those elements.
So if you want to tell me that my story is weak in the middle, or that the ending wasn't satisfying, or the character wasn't strong enough, or the conflict wasn't strong enough, okay, we'll talk about that. But don't tell me that my voice is inauthentically Black, because A, you're not Black, so you can't tell me what authentic Black is. And B, it's authentic for me.
Right.
Yeah, that's the character you created. That's their voice.
Right.
And yeah.
I'm sorry. It does. It just...
Yeah.
And that makes me angry because we've talked about it earlier before the show started. We have a lot of people in power who cause those to become issues where, stories aren't being looked at because they don't fit within certain parameters, or they're being ignored because of the authors who are sending them in. And it's ridiculous that people who have control over that can do that and can say something stupid like that and give your book a good look because of their own prejudices. It's
Right.
Or they think that the book should focus on whatever the diversity is. If it's an LGBTQ book, it has to be all centered on that. It can't just be that they happen to be gay. Oh, this story has to be, oh, it's a Latina book. Well, then it has to deal with all of the issues she faces for that. Why? Why can't she just happen to be from a Latino community and it's part of her and all of this other stuff too? And she's trying to get a job and she's falling in love. Everybody does these things. Why do we need to focus on the adversity of being other? That just makes us feel even more other. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
And if you want to write a book about that, great, but you shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to focus on that for it to be deemed publishable. Because, I mean, these are not burdens that everyone has.
No.
I mean, women don't have to write just about being women, though there's still a prejudice for women's fiction. Why do we have to have a category called women's fiction?
Right.
Yeah.
There's no male fiction. It's just called fiction. And the only difference is the protagonist is a female.
Well,
That doesn't mean that a man couldn't enjoy reading the story.
Right.
Plenty of women read stories where a man is the protagonist and they enjoy it just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've written a man as a protagonist, as a main character in a lot of my stories.
Yeah.
Killed one of them that I absolutely love.
I'm so sorry.
You don't sound so sorry.
She's not. She sends me her work to beta read.
The story.
She sends me her work to beta read, and sometimes she'll warn me, and sometimes she doesn't. And I get to the part, and she gets a very mean letter from me. Why did you do that?
It's better to not warn your beta reader because then you get an honest reaction.
Yes.
Oh, she does.
I think you cried. You cried on that one, right? That was Tom, right? Yes. He was one of my favorite characters too, but
but then again, just last week we were discussing other characters that have to die.
Yeah,
they have to die to forward the story, and whether we want them to die or not, sorry, that just has to happen.
And it's very hard, and that's why I've been puttering around with the story, because I know this has to happen and I don't want to do it.
Right, you get to that point where I don't want to kill this person.
Right.
I don't want them to be gone, but I have to do it.
Framed it. It's like, damn it.
No, and I agreed with her. They had to die, but
Yep.
we have to make it worthwhile. So
Yes.
we got to make their death meaningful.
Yep. Yeah,
that one.
it's rough when yeah, and that's why I haven't been so focused. I think that's where my focus is going, squirrel over here. Okay, let's start a little bit, dabble here on a little bit of the story, dabble here on a different story, dabble here. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got to finish this one because this one's going out in October. So I moved my editing date. So it's not July, thankfully, because I knew once we sold our house and did all this stuff and the coronavirus came, I'm like, I'm not going to get this done by July. And thankfully I didn't. I did move it. So
better to give it time and marinate and get the story exactly as you want it than to try and rush through.
Right.
And even when you have an outline, sometimes knowing where the story is going doesn't mean you're going to get there in that same, picture.
Right.
It's going to look a little different and things change along the way. And you hope to end up in the same spot.
Yeah.
It might not be the exact same spot you were looking at.
I know. So Tonya, what's your writing framework like, and how long does it take you from beginning to end?
I don't think I have a consistent method yet because my first book, I wasn't trying to write a book. I had a dream that turned into a piece of fan fiction, and I started writing that fan fiction. Didn't even know what fan fiction was, but since these were existing characters and I was writing about them, someone said that's called fan fiction.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. I started writing that, and these things kept happening in the story where I was like, they wouldn't do that. So I would take that and put it aside, and that's not them. And I would put it aside, and I realized I am writing this story now. I am no longer writing this fan fiction. I'm writing this other story. And 200,000 words later, I realized it might be more than one book.
Yeah, I think so.
But I wasn't I didn't consider myself a writer. I may have written things from time to time on my own. I had started a book years ago, but I didn't really think it would go anywhere or do anything. But this book just took over, and I'm usually a planner with anything, so it was weird to write from the seat of my pants, because that's not the kind of person I am. And it just exploded into a series. And so I finished the first book, finished the second book, polished the hell out of the first book, and that's the one that I'm querying. The second one is only kind of half polished, and I'm still trying to get an agent for that first book.
Yeah.
I have started another book that is separate from that, and that is, I'm going at it a little more structured, where I had ideas for what each chapter would do, and I know exactly what the ending is going to be. I'm only 25,000 words into that. I have written short stories. Those I will usually write in a day or so.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really feel the need to outline a short story, because I just write until it's done, and then I revise, and I either add or take away as needed. And then, because I did that screenplay, I don't think we said it on air, but we were talking about how I wrote that screenplay, and it happened to be at the same time where I was kind of supposed to be shooting a film. I had a starring role in a feature film that was supposed to shoot in May, and, life happened and we can't film right now. So they put that off to just some unknown date.
Mm-hmm.
The director was kind of bummed, and I said, well, what if we did a project that could be done at home? What if we wrote something that could be filmed at home? And so she's like, okay, you're helping me. We're co-writing this. So we did. We co-wrote it in a few days, and we finished filming. We wrapped filming this week.
That's awesome.
So I wouldn't have thought of myself as a screenplay writer. It was one of those distant things I would eventually touch on. I make movies, so of course I want to write my own material. There aren't enough roles for people who look like me. But getting over that hump to actually get started, it's the hardest thing to do is to just start. But when you have someone prodding you with a deadline, or you have someone who says, hey, you're helping me with this, okay. For that, I didn't know what was going to happen. We just kind of had a powwow meeting. We met over Zoom. We cast that project first. It was weird. Like, we put out the casting call, got the people who were willing and able to participate. And then we had just kind of an idea fest where, okay, we'll brainstorm this here, and we picked people at random. We're going to have this kind of story. We picked 4 different types of stories, and we found a way to piece them together.
That's so cool.
So I've done a whole number of styles. I can't really say I've settled on one. I believe eventually I will be considered a blend of pantser and plotter, where I will initially plot, but give my characters enough room to go where they need to go.
Yeah.
And you can be whatever you want. There's no right way to do it. The right
Exactly.
way.
I know. It's whatever works for you.
Like,
There's some people who get bored if they have it all plotted out, and then they don't want to write it anymore. That's not me. I like knowing where it's going.
My first book took me 5 years to write, because I outlined it from beginning to end, and I felt so boxed in that I didn't have the creativity to write the scenes. There was nothing there. And so when I went off script and I was able to just write what I felt like, the book finished itself. And the next book took 6 months to write. And the next book took 3 months to write. And ever since then, I've done the same thing. I've refined the way I do it. Sometimes I do my to-do list, Sometimes I do a beat sheet. Sometimes I do a couple paragraph outline. It depends on the story, but each time it's been a little bit different. And it's whatever the story
One thing that is consistent for me is that you get bursts of ideas, and I'm someone who will always get an idea while I'm exercising and can't do anything about it, or when I'm in the shower. Yep. So I've spent countless hours after the shower just, dripping wet, typing on my phone, let me get this down before I forget this thought. Mm-hmm. And it might not be the story that I'm currently working on, but this scene came to me and I get it down. And then when I am ready to sit and work on that particular story, hey, here's a rough draft already of this scene just based on thoughts that, shower thoughts, basically.
Yeah, I used to get it when I was walking the beach. My brain would just go into the story and percolate it. So I got to get back into the walking the beach. So maybe I can finish this script book.
Do you ever run dialogue in the shower?
Because yes.
That's the scene. You hear the characters talking and you speak for them.
I do that. I also run my lines in the shower. I cannot tell you the number of times I've run down the entire Cleopatra show just in the shower, just from top to bottom.
Yep. I don't know. There's something freeing about the shower. Singing in the shower, doing dialogue. My family no longer thinks I'm crazy because they know I talk in the shower, because I do. I hear my characters before I see them. And so when I hear them talking, I will run those lines until I can get somewhere where I can write them down. Yeah, that's no right way. It's whatever works for you.
Oh, I see a question from Julia. Sorry, I'm bad at looking at the comments on this. I'm new to this program. But Julia, my book is called Dark Beacon, but it is not yet published, so I'm sorry. Unless you want to be one of my beta readers, I can't give it to you yet.
Oh,
right.
I was going to say, she didn't say, yes, I want to be a beta reader yet. I'm like, she's madly typing probably.
We had a question from Joe earlier too, and I'm scrolling back up to try and find it here. Going back to when we were talking about the Henderson Writers conference. Where is it? Dang it, so many comments. Thank you guys in the audience. You've been wonderful with the comments, by the way. Excellent comments. Here we go. Did the conference online give you moments on how to be more efficient so that when you resume to an in-person type of conference, were there things that just work faster?
I don't know how to explain this, but because we were forced to rush and do everything, I'm a list maker, and so we are implementing a checklist system so that we have every job that needs to be done on one sheet, even if it's really long. This way we can divvy it up, pass it out to different people, and we know everything that will be done and not have to stress on, did we remember this thing? I'm not as worried about it for an in-person conference, but it is going to make everything so much smoother to have that checklist, and definitely doing this one quickly influenced that.
Trial by fire, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And Julia says, sign her up. I had a feeling she would say that.
I was like, she was taking madly as we kind of moved on.
And Julia is a fabulous editor too. So not only is she
so you know her and you can help connect us.
She not only gives great developmental comments, but she's also going to make sure all the commas and punctuation are where they're supposed to be.
I am all for it. I am an editor, but when it's my own work, that part of my brain shuts off. It's hard for me to edit my own work.
Well, you know what you meant to say. Your brain fills in the gap.
Your brain fixes it for you. And it's, the other day I found a missing comma. It's like, I always do the Oxford comma. How could I possibly have missed this?
I'm comma deficient. And Katie does the Shatner comma.
I'm
the Shatner comma.
we balanced each other.
What's funny is when I edit, I can do that part better. When it's other people's work, I can find where the commas are supposed to go. I can fix that stuff. But when it's me, oh my God, I sprinkle commas in like confetti. It's horrible.
Yes.
Because you hear the pause in your mind, so you're like, you must need a comma right there.
I hear the dialogue as it comes out with all of these strange pauses that come with natural speech.
But when you're reading someone else's work, it's like your brain goes, oh, wrong. And so you have to fix it. When it's yours, it's, oh, you meant this.
Yep.
Yes, I do know your email, Julia. I'll pass it along.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I like that. I just write and an editor puts in my comment.
Know your strengths, right? Oh, thank you, Julia.
I love the whole memes that come by that really emphasize the need for the Oxford comma. And they
right.
Yes.
It means something different without the comma. Do you really mean to eat, Grandma?
Right.
Bingo.
It helps me
But,
remember.
the funny thing is, they don't use it in England anymore. Like, it's the Oxford comma. Why don't they use it in Oxford?
That's good. Yeah. No,
Nope.
I have issues with commas, so that is my biggest weakness.
What is the one punctuation that you never ever use, or you hardly ever use when you write?
I hardly ever use exclamation points. I am a big M dash fan. I love those.
Mhm.
I like semicolons, maybe too much. I've had the note that you have them using semicolons in their dialogue that makes them feel pretentious. So, okay, well then I will make sure that my pretentious characters continue to do that, and the ones who are not won't.
That's a good way to look at it.
How about you, Jane?
Me? What don't I use? Colons. I don't like colons. Semicolons I use, but I just haven't figured that one out, and then just
Colons at all?
Yeah. I just would rather start a new sentence.
Exclamation points.
Rebekah, I have used an interrobang and no one even noticed. So
no one ever uses those.
I did it.
Nice. Julia limits her exclamation points. I'm one who throws in extras and have my hands slapped and told not to use them. I love my exclamation points.
Because it's all so exciting.
I do it when people are yelling, but that's about it.
Yeah, but if you say that they're yelling, you don't need the exclamation point. It's redundant at that point.
That's true.
Yeah, that's one that my editors usually have to cut out. I also have crutch words too, which I have to seek and destroy now before I send them off for editing because I'll get laughed at. Yeah. I had an editor send me back a note telling me I was only allowed to use the word huff once per chapter. I had a huff count because I used that too much, and I was not allowed.
Right, you have to have your list of words that are your go-to words, your Mm-hmm.
Yep, we all have them. Our crutches. Ooh, she loathes M dashes.
No, I love M dashes.
What? Okay, we need to know why, because I love M dashes too.
Why do you loathe them?
My editors seem to like M dashes too. The editors that I've had.
Type faster, Rebekah.
Okay, my guess is because they create super overly long sentences, which can affect the flow of the paragraph or the what is it? The cadence of the words. Yes. Let's see what she says. Oh, she's the parentheses generation. Oh. All right, so Anita says it's the comma and the ellipsis for me. Does that mean she doesn't use them, Anita, or do you use them all the time? And Rebekah said I nailed it. Yeah, because it creates overly long sentences and
it doesn't get the cadence right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I get you.
That's an abuse of an M dash. I try not to abuse them.
Yes. And she said they're often overused, so there you go. Keeps me out of trouble with the commas. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Anita uses them too much. So too many commas and ellipses. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
We all have our crutches.
Right.
All right. Well, we are actually 3 minutes over time. This hour went by so fast.
It went by fast.
Yeah. Before we go, I have to say, for all of you guys who were waiting to find out who our second sponsor is, if you didn't hear me drop the clue earlier, it is Miss Rebekah Jonesy. She is now our boss number 2. Rebekah Jonesy, a.k.a. the author of Realistic Fantasies, both Sexy and Killer. Miss Dirty Jonesy can be found at RebekahJonesy@blogspot.com, or you know where to find her on Facebook. She's always around. And we thank you, Rebekah, for being our sponsor for Spilling Ink. We can't wait to work with you more in the future. So, there you go. I'm bossy. See? I love Rebekah. Both Rebekah and Joe from Go Indie Now are like family to us. And I was so excited when we were able to come together to make this agreement to kind of get even closer as family, and I love working with Go Indie Now. Their shows are absolutely fabulous. And just in case you missed it before, I'll run the banner one more time. 21 Grams is premiering on Monday, June 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook's Go Indie Now page. So definitely check that out. It's going to be a fun interview show you don't want to miss. And that's it for us this week. Anybody else have anything they want to mention before we go? No? We're good. It's been a great conversation. Tonya, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And you are welcome back anytime. Please let us know next time you want to pop on and come chat with us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me. It was very nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too. See you guys next week.
That's right. We'll be back next week. Like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, and we will be back with more authors and people in the publishing industry to chat with you next week. Bye, guys.